Welcome to the Brunch Club podcast, where we highlight amazing women. Join us to fill your cup with inspiration and motivation as our guests share their experiences, their stories, and some hot
coming
gossip.
to you from my sister's closet in Newport Beach. I am Rachel Svoboda, and welcome to this episode of the Brunch Club with Kaaren Hall.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. Glad to be here. What a great store. Oh my gosh.
Have you not been here before?
No, I have never been here. So I am kind of flipping out a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, my sister's closet has been around for over 30 years. They started in Scottsdale. It's luxury consignment resale. It's like the real. So you can get Birkin bags, you can get Louboutins and Chanel and all kinds of treasures. Yeah. There's a store here in Newport Beach. There's one in Encinitas. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
You gotta stay and shop. It's phenomenal. So okay,
I'm literally going to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll stay with you.
Okay.
I probably have never walked out of here without shopping.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So anyways, but before we shop, we're going to talk and we're going to share with you some things. So Kaaren runs uDirect. Now uDirect is a company headquartered here in Irvine, and you work in finance.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So I want you to break it down for all of us women in business who have earned their seat at the table, who have their investment portfolios, who need to learn about financing. You need to talk to Kaaren. So
it's a place to start.
Let's start there.
Yeah,
okay.
I love that.
How did you start in finance?
Right, so nobody like wakes up and decides that, or grows up thinking when they grow up they want to be a self-directed IRA provider, you know.
It was on my list.
I know.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yes.
But no, I just sort of worked my way into it. My first career was being a radio announcer. So for 17 years I did news, I did music, different kinds of music in different cities, and so I did that. And so then I made the logical move to real estate, right? Because you realize,
wow.
Yeah, well, because in
this
radio,
is not a direct line. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But so in radio, well, what happened was I was on the air in Seattle, and I would go on the air after the morning show, and the morning show featured Jimmy Kimmel.
Okay.
At the time.
Perfect.
And so there was the Me and Him show. So the other host of the morning show had a girlfriend. Anyway, she says she ran a property management company. She said, manage a building for me. I said, great. It started the whole thing.
Okay.
So I started in real estate doing property management, got a real estate license, ultimately went into mortgage, first servicing and then origination. So I started really learning how that whole process works. And then fast forward the Great Recession, and I couldn't make a mortgage, obviously, during those years, you remember, and you weren't going to buy or sell a house really during those couple of years there. Yep. So I needed a JOB.
Okay.
And so what I did was I looked around and found a job for a company was opening a self-directed IRA office in Orange County, and I got a job there. And so I worked there for a couple of years and then went off on my own and opened uDirect, IRA Services.
And I actually found uDirect and you because the work I'm doing with Apex Financial Partners is another one of my businesses, and we needed to work with a company just like yours, and I was determined. I said, I want to work with a woman-owned business. I want to work with somebody local. And I literally was like Googling.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
That's how you found us.
That's how I found you. And then I reached out, and your team was so like on it, and they were smart, and they really had their you-know-what together. And I was like, okay, all right, I see you. Like, this is great.
Right.
And then I met you, and I was like, oh, I think we've met. Like, you were very familiar.
Yeah, probably from just, the area, networking and things like that.
Okay, and then you handed me your book.
Yes.
Okay, this book is phenomenal. I literally started reading it while I was laying out by the pool, and I started like underlining it and making notes in it like a college textbook. But I loved it because I didn't come from this world.
Right.
And I could understand it.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, she really explained it in a way that made sense. How did you write this?
Well, yeah, it's funny. It took me 10 years to write the book. I wrote it and rewrote it, and then gave the manuscript to Bigger Pockets. They asked for it, and they held it for a few years, and then they said, it was in September, they said, yeah, we'd like that manuscript in November, go. So completely finish it. So I did. And then it was published, and now it's helping people, which is great. But when it comes to self-directing, there are people like who've worked in finance all their lives and don't even know you can self-direct an IRA. So it's not something that you would have even learned. Even if you went to business school or had an MBA, you wouldn't probably even know about it. It's very surprising. But these IRA rules were created in 1975. And ever since then, you've been able to invest in literally anything except life insurance contracts and collectibles. And it's a best kept secret. So now your IRA cannot buy a Birkin bag, sadly. I mean, it's like a crime that you can't do that, but you can't.
All right, well, not yet.
Because it's considered a collectible. So the IRS just said the things you can't invest in are life insurance contracts and collectibles.
Okay.
Right.
But everything else, what are some other examples of what you can use your IRA money for?
Well, what most people do with their IRA money is they invest in private equity. So say, for example, someone's building an apartment building and they're trying to raise capital. So they're going to go to the SEC and get what's called maybe like a Reg D offering and a private placement. And so private equity is the #1 asset class for our entire industry. So that's most likely what someone's going to invest in. Now, something very unlikely would be something crazy like Super Bowl tickets. So it's a true thing. So long ago.
Wait, but Super Bowl tickets are really unique because they actually are an equity buy-in. Oh, you mean NFL or Super Bowl specific?
Yeah, no, I mean, well, here's the story.
Okay.
That'll kind of clear it up. So people don't usually do this. In fact, it's pretty, today probably no custodian would allow it, but back in the day, like 20 years ago, this young man takes his self-directed IRA, a Roth, and buys tickets to the Super Bowl. Now, because he wasn't in the business, he wasn't a ticket vendor himself, it wasn't his business. And because there was nothing special about the ticket other than it was to the Super Bowl, he could do it. So he bought it, and then he resold it. And the profit went back in his Roth IRA tax-free. Is that crazy?
That's really cool.
So
we can't do that though.
Well, you have to find a custodian who'll hold the asset.
Okay.
So there's what the IRS says you can invest in, and then there's what a custodian is willing to custody. Does that make sense?
Okay, so that's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's certain companies when they come to you and you vet them, and then you approve. You have like an approved list.
No, not really. I mean, it's self-directed. I mean, it is interesting because people can choose any asset that they want, and they'll bring it to us, and we'll tell them whether or not it's what we call a prohibited transaction. That's one thing we're looking for.
Okay.
Or if it's a disallowed asset. So with self-directed IRAs, the rule is just keep away from prohibited transactions, which is investing with somebody in your line of affinity, really like parents and grandparents, yourself, and your spouse, your children, and your grandchildren. You can't invest with them. But you can invest with your brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, cousins, aunts and uncles. They're okay. But certain people you can't invest with. So you just follow that. And this is why we're here. Because if you want to put an asset in your self-directed IRA, you give us a call, you schedule a consultation, and then we're going to take a look at your deal and see if it fits, if it fits the box. But we don't approve it or say if it's a good or bad asset. We're not going to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I like that you're encouraging people to ask the questions. And
yes.
that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you're working with one of the big companies out there where you're just a number, but I feel like anyone that works with you, there's that personal touch. You guys really know your clientele.
Right. Well, so if you want to invest like one of the big guys, like maybe a stock market based, advisor, they're going to put you obviously in the market, probably in mutual funds with an IRA, something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the stock market has been like a hockey stick since it opened. It has its ups and downs, but it's largely it usually gains over time. So the stock market's great, but what a self-directed IRA lets you do is alternatives, like not the stock market. So if you want to diversify and invest in something that's not the stock market, like a private equity, or like, for example, your IRA, okay, get this, could make a loan to this store, and then if the store needed capital to expand or buy more inventory, your IRA could make a loan to the store, and then the store would borrow the money, pay your IRA back. Is that crazy? Your IRA could be the bank. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, I love that.
Yeah.
No, that's so creative.
Yeah.
And I think people just don't know that that's even an option because it's like you said, it's not something we're taught in school. It's not something that everybody knows. So, I mean, I would encourage people to reach out to you, to learn more, to ask questions. And sometimes you don't know what questions to ask.
Right. Oh, it's true. It's true. And if you hear of an opportunity and you think, oh, I can't do that, or I don't have the money, you can ask yourself, well, do I have an old 401k? Or do I have an IRA laying around somewhere? Because if you do, you could self-direct it into an alternative asset. But it's other things too. It's so your IRA can buy and sell performing and non-performing debt. Just saying.
Give an example of that for people who don't know what that is.
Sure. Okay. So debt. So say, for example, a bank loans a lot of money, but they need to raise capital for whatever liquidity needs that they have at the bank. So what they're going to do is sell the right to collect the payments on a lot of notes.
Okay.
And so sometimes as an investor, you can buy those notes at a discount. And then so you have the right to collect more than, more than the remainder of what's owed. You'll pay pennies on the dollar for it. So that's buying debt. I know it's kind of,
It's kind of complicated, but
a little bit.
It's a different way of thinking.
It is.
Than what most people are taught. And I think that as we become smarter investors and we make better choices, social media has been big with that. A lot of education.
So true.
And I know you do a lot of education.
I do, because this is not something that people readily understand. So on our YouTube channel and on our Instagram channel, I do little talking head videos explaining the various aspects, because there's so many aspects of stuff. We couldn't possibly cover them sitting here today.
Well, and you make it really digestible.
Oh, good, thanks.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
So, as I'm learning and I'm getting, better at this. So, the other thing I wanted to ask you about today is, as you're giving, as you're growing your business, as you're continuing to expand, you seem to be really driven by your word of the year, which I think is purpose.
I would think so, absolutely, every day.
Can you tell us more about purpose in your life?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility in being a business owner. It's not just, it extends so far beyond yourself. It's to all the account holders responsible to make sure that things are going well and they're giving good customer service. It's also to the staff and being responsible for everybody's livelihood and making sure the company has a good reputation, making sure that things are going well, and that we're just moving things forward with all the different areas. In fact, I'm doing a full 360 remodel of the business, as far taking that's what you do every once in a while. You know how you clean your closet sometimes, and you probably bring it here to the store.
Yeah.
But when you clean your closet, you look at it and it's frightening. And it's a process. But once you're done, you're so glad and it looks really good.
Yeah.
So we're doing that with the business right now, just to look at every different aspect. So that's one of the things that gives me a lot of purpose, is to just improve, constantly improve.
There's an old word. Well, it's old to me. I learned it when I was working at Saatchi & Saatchi, working on Toyota. And it was a Japanese word called kaizen.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I love that word. It means continual improvement.
Okay.
And that was their whole spirit of kaizen.
I'm thinking of the Ishikawa fish chart. That's a business term too. But
that's one too, yeah.
Japan, gotta love them.
Yeah, so good. As we wrap up, there's one question I ask everybody. What advice would you have for any young woman out there with big goals?
Oh, wow. Don't give up. I mean, that's the thing. When you've got a dream, just don't give up, because you'll face so many hurdles when you're going through the process of any dream that you have. You're going to be tested to make sure that that's really what you want and that you're dedicated to it. So even when things get rough, just don't quit. I think I'm actually quoting Walt Disney. That's what he said. He said, just don't quit. That's how you succeed. And that's the best advice I could give.
All right. Okay, you guys. Well, get to know Kaaren. Check out the book. Come shop with us at My Sister's Closet. And thank you for stopping by the Brunch Club. We'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for stopping by the Brunch Club podcast. It's been fabulous to share this time with you. Are you interested in being on the show? Do you want to nominate somebody? Reach out at rachelswoboda.com.